Hi, everybody. Welcome to Free Yourself podcast, where we invite you to create space to flourish. My name's Jeff Miller, and I'm your host. Some of you probably know, but I'm doing a motorcycle tour right now across the United States from Los Angeles to Vermont. And I had a little bit of a problem yesterday on the way to Santa Fe. I didn't make it to Santa Fe. I made it to Albuquerque and got a flat tire. But miracle of miracle, it's crazy, but all motorcycle shops are closed not only on Sundays, which you would expect, but they're closed on Mondays. And everybody knows that except me. But I guess there are a few exceptions, and we found one of the exceptions. So the tire has just been fixed, and I'm going to be back on schedule. But my friend and amazing guest who's joining me today is helping me stay on schedule, Dr. Kimberly Dickman. So we're really, really thrilled that she'd help me stay on schedule. I'm not in Colorado Springs at the moment, but I'm going to be there tomorrow, and I leave super early tomorrow and head to Colorado Springs. And so I'll do just a little bit of an intro as well from Colorado Springs so everybody can know that I actually drove through Colorado Springs. But Kimberly right now is at the Air Force Academy joining me for this podcast. And just a little bit about Kimberly. She's an ethics educator and specialist in positive psychology at the Air Force Academy. And she focuses on developing ethical, purpose-driven leaders by integrating insights from positive psychology, meaning-making, and narrative practices, which are just dear to my heart. She holds a doctorate in educational leadership from Argosy University in Honolulu and completed her postdoctoral studies on human sexuality and relationships at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And if that's not amazing enough, she's also a fellow MAP alum, a Master of Applied Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, which is where I am fortunate to have met her, although she's a cohort before mine. And just a little bit, her role at the Academy involves shaping young leaders, helping them with developing integrity, resilience, emotional intelligence, and a strong sense of ethical purpose. And for me, this aligns with the core themes of flourishing, identity, storytelling, and reflective practices. So I'm just so grateful. And you've been so good with communicating and supporting me with all this craziness of putting the tour together. So thanks for being here. It's great to see you.
Yes, so great to see you, Jeff, and so glad that you're safe. I know that before you even took off, I sent wishes and prayers that you'd be safe. And then as you head to Colorado, I shared that, we get those afternoon storms, and yesterday a big hailstorm. So please continue safely as you go. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so great. And the more I've kind of really tried to prep to speak with you, the work that you do and what you're about is there's so many layers to it, and it's so surprising. I think maybe because I come into things, and often we come into things with ideas on what something means. You're at the U.S. Air Force Academy. That's incredible. And that somehow equals something in our minds, But as I started really breaking it down, and kind of looking at, leadership, but also young people, and looking at the complexity of what's going on in everyone's lives right now, but particularly with young people, and that things are moving at lightning speed. I just want to ask you from a leadership standpoint, and also, and just to mention, not everybody, because my podcast is new, and I'm learning still how to share about positive psychology, but maybe just a few insights on positive psychology itself, but also how it specifically maybe shapes your approach to integrity and ethical clarity for the future U.S. Air Force Academy, but just for young people, young leaders.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Jeff. And I'll first say, it comes from our lawyers that I say I do not speak for the Department of Defense, for the Air Force, or for the Air Force Academy. But then it comes from me that I speak from the science that we know and the practice that we do, and the experience that we know about human flourishing. And I am in a unique position here to work with our young adults, our emerging adults, as we say. And you're right, there are some particular challenges currently. And I would think that every generation has their particular challenges for sure. But looking at the particular challenges we have right now, I think that it is absolutely the time for positive psychology and introducing that to our young leaders, right? Future leaders, not just for their own flourishing and well-being, but those that will influence others and others' lives and our nation in terms of, what happens in the world. And so positive psychology, as you know, Jeff, helps us to lead a life of flourishing, allows us to not just have positive emotions, but actually have meaning and purpose in life, knowing what can drive us. And then, as you mentioned, the use of positive psychology in ethics or character development, right, it absolutely fits in. And I know that we will remember the courses that we had, but, understanding philosophy and the theories of character development and ethics absolutely all goes together. Leadership, positive psychology, ethics, they are a natural fit for sure, and an important one that we have responsibility, whether we're parents, whether we're teachers, whether we're neighbors, right, to help influence these young minds and young bodies, as well as young leaders as well.
You said flourishing a few times, and it's so funny because that's one of the things that our brand actually, like our brand mission statement, creating space to flourish. And I thought, well, you just made me think when you said it, well, how often do we all really think about flourishing? What does flourishing mean to us? What does it actually mean to everyone, everyday people, not necessarily cadets or, what does it mean to flourish?
I'll take a step back in answering that. And, in psychology for decades, if not even centuries now, we've focused on one end of the continuum where people are struggling, right? Where we have disorders, we have diagnoses, et cetera, right? Trauma, and so that's one end of the continuum, which is really critical and really important. It's not saying, well, we're done with that. We're not. The human condition is to suffer, as many religions may support. And I personally worked in that field as a therapist, as a mental health provider, and understand the need and the requirement for that. Absolutely. And we know that when someone is not struggling, suffering, have a diagnosis, that is not the highest level of measure of life, right? To just not be depressed, to just not be anxious, to just not have this diagnosis, that is not enough on what I say are one go on this globe that we have. And so, as you know, about 25 years ago, and actually even further back, but officially 25 years ago, this field of positive psychology started, and it really looked at, okay, if we're not on the other end, what does it mean to be at this end of being alive, right? And what I really appreciate about flourishing, it doesn't say that we get rid of all the tough stuff, the hard stuff, that we're never going to struggle. One, that's not real to humans, but flourishing doesn't say that. It says that, yes, sometimes you may be planted in this situation or have this circumstance, and yet, how might you live the life that's worth living, as famously said in the field, right? How do you make a life that gives you meaning, even if perhaps your work doesn't give you meaning, but going home to that child might give you meaning. Maybe it's not that I'm living the ideal of what I want to do with my life right now, but how do I find the good in others, in my situation, in my circumstance? Right? The flourish, I think, often is like with plants. So how do we grow where we're planted, and how do we make life better, not just for ourselves, but others as well?
Wow. I want to ask you, I want to save this for last, and maybe we still will, but I want to bring up reflective practices or reflective rituals, right? And the reason I'm just bringing up is you made me think that I love everything that you're saying. It just like, I feel like I'm back at Penn right now, hearing this and just being recharged. But I'm out on the road right now, and I am reminded how difficult a time so many people are having. And by the way, I've been met with so many lifesavers and genuine like greetings from people like you wouldn't even believe, right? So there is so much potential of human flourishing out there, but people are really under duress. And sometimes it's just hard to just kind of put one foot in front of the other. And are there maybe just some simple ideas, maybe for somebody who's, not ready to go out and do all this stuff and change the world, but just somebody who just is like, just enough to like make a little bit of a difference in a day?
Yeah, Jeff, when I heard you were going to do this road trip, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, the people you will meet, right? Like whether it's at a gas station or a McDonald's or, your tires flat and the people that you will meet. And I thought, that is one of the practices that I like to teach and really show the science behind is these micro moments of connection, right? Like a lot of these people, you will not go and have dinner with them. They won't come to your wedding or your son's wedding. Like it's not going to be these lifelong relationships, which are important as well, but these micro moments is, can I say hello to someone in the grocery store? If I live alone, if I'm finding I'm really lonely, right? When I go and pick up my food, when I order food out, if I go and pick it up, can I just have a quick conversation with the person checking me out at the counter, right? That you're right. We have this epidemic of loneliness. The Surgeon General and others in research have shown that. We have our younger generation having some challenges with social engagement, emotional engagement with others. But when we have that opportunity, whether it's sitting on the bus, sitting on the train, like to take a moment instead of just popping in the earphones or, reading in your book, to take a moment and have a human connection. I think that really is key to what you're asking, because we're made for that. We cannot survive without others. And yet I often see that struggle, and I hear that with the students I work with, right? One young man came in and said, I am so lonely, I hurt. I'm like, okay, let's talk about the physiology of human connection and how that can help you, psychologically, physically, emotionally. And this young man has roommates. Like they live in one dorm room, so it's not even an apartment, and is surrounded by thousands of people, and how we can still feel lonely. So I'd say that's one thing, is the immediate micro connections that we can make with others. And I think you started, Jeff, with the whole reflection. Like, do we take time to take the time? Do I sit and, really think about this conversation we're having today, or the lunch that I had with a coworker today? Am I there, or am I grabbing my phone? Am I somewhere else? Like, are we really present with this other human? Allowing us to reflect on gratitude, right? Like, oh, you got a flat tire, but oh my goodness, the other things that you got from that experience. And so I think that reflection, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, or just reflecting on what did that teach me today? What can I take away from that lesson, right? That failure that just happened, can I reflect on that? Versus what's the next thing? What's the next thing, right? We have I would say, especially with our students here, they are high achievers. They work hard before they get here and while they're here. And a lot of times it's what's next, what's next. When I get that, then I'll have made it, or I'll be happy. When I get the next thing, right? And it's said the goalpost always moves. Can we just reflect where we're at and do that appreciation, mindfulness, etc.? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, I'll just say, uh, Kim Gillingham, who was on our panel in Beverly Hills, she is a renowned acting coach. I mean, just working with the best of the best, and with a background in Strasbourg, but she's also a Jungian dream guide, and so she really connects dream work with the Strasbourg work, with the method work, just from a basic standpoint. And so I've been doing dream assignments for each night. And this leg of the tour, even though I'm not going to Colorado Springs, is is terre, which is earth in French, right? And I sat down here, and terre is up on this. I'm in a cheesy hotel room. It's literally the word terre, and it says French right next to terre, which is crazy, on this thing behind me. And when I had the flat tire, I was on this super busy, I mean, crazy busy highway, semi after semi. I pulled over to the cement guard as far as I could, and then I climbed over, and luckily there was a little bit of a cliff to give me some shade. I looked for rattlesnakes, to make sure. And I was just like, look, this is, the theme for yesterday was go with the flow. And so I just kept saying that was my thing, was go with the flow. And that kind of saved me. I didn't even get my stuff set down. And this guy on a Harley, Daniel, comes up the opposite way on the shoulder of the road and literally saves my life, helps me out, heads back down to the stop to get tire refill. That didn't work, but then followed me in flashing lights to get down to the truck stop. And, it was I just kept thinking about human connection and what that was about, and he wouldn't take any money. He was really incredible, for this guy from Arkansas. And he had driven all the way from Las Vegas. And yeah, it's like, gosh, Kimberly, I mean, how, I got this master, and yet I can forget all of that in 2 seconds with stress, being under duress, the phone, the social media, right? And it's so, I think I want to ask you, like, resilience, optimism, we know from positive psychology, it's like, be positive. No, I love what you said. Life happens.
Yes.
Stuff happens. There's wars going on. There's divisiveness out there. People are struggling to put food on the table. People aren't talking with their families, aren't talking with their neighbors, or when they are, it's not civil. And I get it, by the way. I have a lot of those emotions. However, there is a sense of optimism that's also out there that I experienced yesterday, and resilience that are these that are accessible to us. What is it that you talk with your students about, how to reach these tools, or where these tools are? For some, gratitude doesn't work. It's not the right tool for them. So that we have a toolbox that allows us to find our tools that work for us.
Yes, yeah. So I got to teach a class here a couple times so far on applied positive psychology. And much like we learned in the MAP program, you've got to try it, right? So we have I hear repeatedly, like, science says this works, right? Or here's the p-value, here's all this stuff. And I will highlight first that science a lot of times is done on students that are in college and universities. There's other populations for sure, but it's a easy captured audience, right? If you want extra credit, you can go volunteer for this study and I'll give you extra credit for class. It is an easy population. And I will highlight that college students do not represent the globe. They do not even represent our United States, right? You have to have some finance, privilege, support, etc., to be a college student. And research is still the best that we have at this time. I love it when, it kind of swings one way and then the other, like milk is good for you, it's not good for you, or red wine is good, but now it's not good. And I'm like, research is the best that we have at this time. And so, I don't know if you've heard, Jeff, it's kind of a giddy term that's called me search, right? So here's the research, but you've got to do the me search. Like, you've got to try it. You've got to see, like with gratitude. So my students would do 2 weeks of gratitude practice, and we'd take a look at the science behind it, how it works, different ways of doing it. Is it once a week? Is it every night? Is it journaling? Right? Like all these ways. And then they go practice it for 2 weeks. 2 weeks is still not long enough, but we've got to move on to the next practice. And then they reflect. Did that bring me closer to what I wanted, to be more mindful? Did it bring me closer to be more grateful? Did it make me feel worse? Because for, like you said, a certain population, gratitude actually might be harmful, right? So you've got to practice it to see if it works for you, even though the science will say, here's what we see or here's what we know for most people. Many of us can be on the ends of that bell curve and it may not fit for us. And so much like exercise, I mean, you've got to do it to see if it works, and then if it doesn't, to adjust. Like, okay, what else might fit? And there's many, as you know, many practices in positive psychology that might help with both being present, thriving, finding meaning, etc. Yeah.
You just nailed it. You said finding meaning and identity and narrative. So this tour, look, there's, no matter what, that Marty's 51 and 51% of the world flourishing by 2051. Just that notion inspires me. It just sent chills right up me just saying it right now. The idea of, and look at where we are today. It's like, what? But how do we get to a place of human flourishing, right? And when I think of Isaac's work on mattering and meaning and mattering and our identity and narrative, personal narratives, right? And so this is, and I was even talking with my business partner at my production company this morning, and just talking about how everybody's story has meaning. Everybody's story matters. It doesn't mean we're going to write a screenplay or that people want to see a movie about it. That's not. It's that somebody does want to hear that story. That does make a difference to somebody. Maybe not to 2 million followers or likes or whatever out there, but everybody's. How many? I've had times in my life where somebody out of the blue, and I'm talking 10, 20 years later, told me that I had an effect on them, and I'm like, and it's those little things that you're talking about, just hearing, sitting down, listening. But for those right now, people that don't think their story matters, that their story doesn't have meaning, that their personal narrative doesn't, that it doesn't matter. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because you're probably dealing with that especially with high achievers at the Air Force Academy, but it might be something that you run into a lot, I would think.
Yes, yeah. So, a lot of times when I hear, meaning and mattering, it's about work. And I have to remind myself and in conversations with others is that it may not be work. For some, we're fortunate to have that, and there's a connection between work and our life's purpose or our meaning or why am I here, and they happen to match. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they will. I think that we should make a broader understanding of meaning and mattering as well, right? Yes, if you spend 8 hours, 10 hours a day doing something, you would hope that it matters to others and that what you do matters. And I would say, like you said, you can find that in anything, any kind of job that you do. I love the one story that we heard in MAP about, the cleaner in a hospital, like he's cleaning the room where they do the chemotherapy. And when someone asks, what is it? What's your job? How do you describe it? And he says, I keep people alive, right? I clean the germs off the floor because sometimes they vomit and I have to clean it up, and I'm keeping people alive by what I do. Right. And so as I get older, I'm starting to reflect on, wow, what is it that I'm leaving? Am I leaving anything? Like, will people ever read an article or know my lesson that I did? And sometimes I get a little down and I think, no, they won't. And it doesn't really matter. But then I'm reminded, our daughters, we have 3 daughters, and they ask us repeatedly for the stories of our lives. Like, Mom, tell me again about how you grew up, or Mom, tell me again how you met Dad, and Mom, tell me. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, that's pretty boring. But to them, my life matters, right? And it mattered what I did. And so I think expanding that definition and understanding that it can be the littlest things, like you said, 10 years later, right? That someone says something and we don't even know that we made a difference. I have this journal I've had for years, and inside I do have some letters from people who have just said, you don't know, but when you did this, this is what that did. And for those times when I need that little boost, or like, why am I doing this? Why do I continue? Is it making a difference? I think it absolutely, it does, and it can.
Yeah. I don't know what's right or wrong here, but I just need to share on a personal level. My mom's 85 and she lives with us. And my brother passed away this year from a pulmonary embolism, so completely unexpected. And, we really feel his loss, right? And he called her every day, at 4 o'clock, and they talked for an hour. I suck talking on the phone. Can I just tell you, I am the worst. I've got my schedule's too busy. Let's cut to the chase, and shame on me, but my brother did it so brilliantly. They just laughed. I could hear my mother laughing in the other room, and she doesn't have that right now. And I think about meaning and mattering, and you just even, my mom was the department head, the department head for environmental services at major hospitals in Atlanta. And and let me just tell you, she had so much integrity, so much of a work ethic, and she took care of so many people and on so many levels, bringing them clothes and things that maybe they didn't have, or, all these kinds of things. And, she couldn't get her people paid $8 an hour because of the corporation, blah, 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 and all those things. So she was always doing this stuff, and that, today, giving her the time and the attention, the respect, that she doesn't have that story going on right now, but her story is right today is built on that story.
Yes.
My story is built on that story. And I think we can only assume that probably applies to most people out there.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss, Jeff.
No, thank you. Thank you. This is, this is for him a lot. This is really, thinking about him. I talked to his boys yesterday, it was on Father's Day, and, this is, it's just, it goes fast, man. It goes really fast. And, and I think that also for a society out there, I think of, especially when I'm traveling across and seeing, so many great memories that I have across the US, and so many things that I know just from, whether it's watching TV or just the news or reading books, or, stories from friends and stories that we have across this great nation of ours. And look, there's so many reasons to be angry, on so many levels for so many people, and there's no argument with that. That seems like punching a brick wall to me a bit right now, and that positive psychology, and a lot of other things, art, narratives, personal narratives, storytelling, whatever that is, finding meaning in our work, finding meaning in our lives. Those are ways to at least maybe take a little bit of the heat off, to maybe change the point of view, as we enter a conversation, to maybe just adjust the lens a little bit as to how we might be able to start a conversation with someone. And that's my hope. I think that's, what's available out there.
I'll add a little that as you got emotional, Jeff, I really appreciated you didn't say, oh, I'm sorry, right? Like a lot of times we see that when people show emotion and they're like, I'm sorry I did that. Just give me a minute. I'll put it back together. And just watching you for a moment and understanding the importance for us to go through emotions, right? And as you said, this anger that many people have right now, to understand, to to go through it, to use it, hopefully in a positive, building, flourishing way of, anger is a message that something isn't okay. So what can I do about that? Sadness and grief is that you loved someone, right? So how do we use that? And so that's one thing I really work with emotional intelligence with our young folks, is that all of our emotions, the rainbow of our emotions, are so critical for how we operate in the world, but also the messages those emotions bring us, right? Like, you loved your brother and this isn't okay. And right now I'm bored. So what does that mean, right? And that a lot of times when we try to shove emotions away is actually when we get more suffering, right? So I'm just going to put the emotions here. I'm not going to deal with it. I am going to work it away. Like, I'm just going to be a workaholic. I'm going to drink it away, sleep it away, eat it away, right? But I tell you, it waits. It
Yeah.
waits. And for
It,
us in the military, move a lot, right? Like, it knows your change of address. Like, it will follow you wherever you go. And so to
yeah.
understand
Yeah.
resiliency,
Wherever you go, there you are.
absolutely. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
recently wrote an article that, resiliency is not about, oh, you're going to get through this, you'll be better, don't worry about it. It is like, you've got to go through this to get to that place. And for some, that downhill, that emotion is not something you just get through. It is real. And so to embrace our emotions as a way to learn and grow, their messages to us for sure. So thank you for sharing that with
Oh
us.
my goodness. I have to share this with you. So inside all of our boxes, right now we have 4 fragrances, and it's called the Elements Collection. And that's earth, water, air, and fire. We're adding 2 at the end of the summer, and that's ether and numinous, that which connects the elements and that which transcends the elements. So it will be a collection of 6. But inside every one of our boxes, both for the fragrances and candles, we have a 300 word phrase, word block, right? Word or word phrase. And it's everything: free yourself from war, free yourself from toxicity, free yourself from doom scrolling, free yourself from self-doubt, free yourself from transphobia, from homophobia, from racism, from being a Karen, free yourself from being a dick, free yourself from bad lighting, free yourself from bedhead, free yourself from dad jokes. And the whole thing is that it's cheeky, it's serious, it's everything in between, and that because our days are filled with everything in between, right? There's war all around us, there's happening, people are scared, but also we do knucklehead maneuvers, we say things maybe we wish we hadn't said, somebody's getting under our skin at work, um, you know, and then we're back to, oh shit, what just got bombed, and all this stuff. And a few people have made a comment about negativity in a box. And from our standpoint, it was like, you know, we spent, by the way, years on creating this word block. And it's like what you said there. And we say creating space to flourish. These are opportunities. You don't have to use them. In fact, most of them probably don't even apply to somebody at any given moment, right? The majority of them. But they're available to either have fun with, have a discussion with. We even have a giant word wall that's behind us, and people can come up and pin a word, and they actually come up in groups, or can I pin another one? Or
Oh,
like, where do I start? And
yes.
all of that. And it's because, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, is, you can have joy and happiness and love and bliss and all of that in a box, but you know, that doesn't hold the same for me on the intention of being able to say, this is all the stuff that's around me and may or may not be affecting me, but I have the ability, or I have the tools, or I have the relationships around me to say, no, this is what's around me, and I'm going to make a choice to create space for myself. I'm going to create a container, and by recognizing these things, by recognizing somebody that's being a Karen, or by recognizing that I have road rage, or that someone else's road rage fills me with anxiety, right? If I can actually kind of embrace that for a moment, get, okay, not today, not today, you know?
Yes.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that that whole phrase, free yourself, and even if I don't find my word on your wall or on the writing, it gives me permission, right? Because mine may be so unique that maybe one or two others have it, but okay, these words don't fit me, but oh, it gives me permission to the shoulds, the coulds, the musts, right? Like you have to do this, you must do this, right? So just the idea that we have permission to let go of that, to not have to fill those shoes, to not be expected to be perfect or any of those things, I think is absolutely part of thriving. So I love that you have that and with fragrance. And I know we've had this conversation before, but how smell and fragrance and odors even, right, just immediately go to connect us to memories, to the world, to other people, right? Like it's immediate. And so I love the connection of how you've done all of that because it brings it all together for sure.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for saying that. And there are two stories that I think I remember you talking about. One, your dog, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to just say, uh, what you tell it, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we had a dog. His name was Sid. We adopted him when he was in England, when we were in England, and he grew to the old age of 18. He was my running buddy when he was young, and then he just like us, get old. He gets tired. Right, and so he passed away 2 years ago. And I'll add in here that as a society, as a culture, many of us don't do pet grief very well. Right? We know that if my mom dies, people will give me cards and flowers. I'm so sorry. Right? But with pets, it's almost like, oh, I'm sorry. And then you move on. Like you'll be at work tomorrow, right? You'll do this tomorrow. And yet pets, many of us know, become part of our family for sure, for sure. And so my husband would wash Sid with a specific shampoo, not even a human shampoo, right? And so the other week I got a whiff of that shampoo and it instantly brought me back to Sid, and the tears came, but the joys came, right? Because 2 years was for me with Sid enough time to now remember the joys as well, right? But just instantly took me there. And I think the other smell with Sid was even like his smelly breath, right? Like when I recall, oh my gosh, it was so stinky at times, and especially as he got old, just stinky. And yet, oh, how I miss that.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't give to just have the real whiff of that, which sounds so gross. It just sounds so gross. And yet, those of us who know, right, like that smell, if he was here, I would just
Yeah.
embrace that. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that I've shared that story. I've been sharing it with people because I just connect with that idea so much. It's you have a fragrance company and it's like Chanel number 5, and and all of that is amazing. And I'm not disparaging that in any way because I love beautiful fragrances, complex fragrances, niche. I mean, they're just magical. They're like a great play, a great song, they're a great movie. I mean, they really trip me out in that way, right? But I think that trips me out in the same kind of way, like that we are connected to our sense of smell so profoundly, right? So emotionally, and that and where I want to go with this with you is intent and ritual, and that what's possible for us. Um, Even today, like I sprayed tear earlier, knowing that I was going to talk with you. I smell it right now, but I really made it a ritual that this was about how I would kind of come into this conversation with you. And I mean, I'm not trying to be cheesy about it at all. The idea of having intention and giving value to something, um, again, creates this container, right? Where I feel safe here in this, and even the smell reminds me of that. But also, that if you're somebody that works, because you're talking about your dog in this, it's like we have these things. I've smelled it with like fresh pavement out on the road. And what are these maybe bad scents, but are these things that really ground people and give them strength? And how do we maybe use that scent? Have you thought about this since our last discussion?
I
How do you
have a
use
bit,
that in
yeah.
ritual?
Yeah, so, I do this exercise in class to think of a smell that brings you back to your childhood or your family. Like it brings up a good memory. And then they'll talk about what's the memory, how do you feel? And at first I was surprised when people would say manure, gasoline. And
Yeah.
and I'm sure I showed it. I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, because it brought me back to the farm where I was up in the morning with my dad milking the cows, or gasoline because my dad worked on trucks, and that was what I did when I was hanging out with my dad." And so then my brain like expanded to, yeah, it's not just the pleasant, beautiful aromas and smell. And so then lately, especially, I have been more, after speaking with you, Jeff, been more aware of smell, fragrance, odor, right? And so for me, in the morning, the first thing I do after I, get up and wash, and one of the first things is to make a cup of coffee. And it used to be just push the button, go get other things done. But now I like stand at the coffee machine, and it's in front of our window that looks at the mountains, right? And sometimes there's a deer, and I just smell and intentionally like reflect and use that smell to help me reflect. And then when I'll get that whiff throughout, like if I'm at the mall or something, it kind of is a reminder, like a trigger of, ooh, reflect. Where are you? What do you feel? Who are you with? What are you noticing? Right? So I'm intentionally trying to use that to help me build a container to be more mindful. And I think I shared with you before, I have one bottle of perfume that my mom wore
Yes.
as a
Yes.
child, and they don't make it anymore. And so I'm
Yeah.
very, very stingy with if I'll spray it or not. But I will take the cap off at night when I'm like brushing my teeth. It's right by the sink, and just smell it and do remembering when I was a child and her strength and what she has given to the world. And then I think that kind of circles back to, I don't know that someone would look at my mom's life and think it makes a great novel or movie. But for me, when I smell that perfume, she made a great life for my dad, for me, my brother, right? And so that smell just brings me back as I end my day. So I start with that smell and I end with a different smell, and just trying to be more purposeful with that. So thank you. Thank you for introducing me and reminding me of that. Yeah.
Gosh, and I'm telling you, I know enough people in the fragrance industry. We're gonna find a bottle of that for you. We have to, because and think about it. I mean, you're a professor at U.S. Air Force Academy, and the way you're talking about fragrance and scent, and I think that you just described it brilliantly. Like I can't do it any better than that. On like this connection, you have this interdisciplinary approach to things that seems very smooth and easygoing. And I think I'll ask you. I mean, do you kind of look to bring that out with your students? Like, is that accessible for all of us? Is that valuable for all of us? For you, it's positive psychology, storytelling, and mindfulness. It's like all these layers of things.
Yes, yeah. Jeff, I appreciate that. I absolutely know that we as humans are not compartments, right? And so when I teach, it absolutely is about the whole human, right? My students are not just brains in the room and then they're going to regurgitate or take the test to know that it's in their brain. Their hearts, their souls, their bodies, they get exhausted, they get tired, they're hungry, they're sad, they're happy. And so to get the best out of their minds really is to encompass and embrace all of that. So regardless of what class I teach, I will start with some exercise or some activity that grounds them, connects them. Sometimes it's the other day we did the hokey pokey, which many of us haven't done for years, right? But that motor synchrony of bodies moving and doing the same thing. And sometimes I'll get the little, oh my goodness, she's really going to make us do this. And yet when I get the feedback at midterms and end of the year, they're like, please don't stop. Please don't stop doing that mindful minute or the motor synchrony or the what was your 10 from yesterday, right? Like something, because I am not just teaching about sex and reproduction. I'm not just teaching about positive psychology. I am hopefully teaching things that will then go into who they become as a leader here in particular, but then who they become as people, right? As parents, as brothers, as neighbors, as world leaders, eventually, potentially, right? And so we are whole beings. There is no separation, mind and body. And so when I teach, I really do shoot for that goal of wholeness and bringing all of that together.
I'm literally, everything that you said there, I was like, okay, this is like the best acting teacher ever. And for those who maybe don't know, acting is my background, and I have a master of theater lab from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. And so, I mean, really like the words and things of getting people connected to their body, their mind, their spirit, and letting go of that outside stuff and kind of then reconnecting back. It's like you're a scientist, and yet everything that you describe is what I would see from one of the very best acting teachers or coaches. And I think that you kind of, I mean, I am so blown away. I mean, I know you're amazing, but I'm blown away because this to me is what this is all about. Like how we are all so connected. We're so different, and yet we're so connected.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. What a treat. Thank you so much for the gift of taking time with us. And it's absolutely just been the joy and really just one of the highlights of the trip so far. Thank you.
Oh, I am so honored, Jeff, that I was surprised that you asked me, and then I was so honored that you asked me. And if you are swinging by here, let me know. We could maybe grab something to eat. That would be wonderful.
Oh my gosh, I will. I'm gonna, because
Okay.
by the way, I'm not there right now. I am gonna be there tomorrow, and at least maybe I'll get a shot, a selfie of myself with the Air Force Academy in the background at the very least. But yes, I'll let you know when I'm heading that way, and if we get a few minutes, it'd be just great to see you and grab a bite or anything like that, even a coffee,
Yes,
whatever works. But
safe
thank you
travel,
so much.
and
Thank you.
savor all those connections, experiences, all of that. So yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please follow us on Instagram. Follow us, Free Yourself and Flourish, and our website, freeyourself.com. And Kimberly, I'll be able to tell you about our mindful collection, which we're launching at the end of the summer, which is Savor, Awe, and Vibe.
Oh, that's
So,
perfect.
yeah. So excited to share that with.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. All right. Wish me luck. I want to be safe on the next leg of the tour. I'm going to go pick up my motorcycle from the repair shop right now and then head on to Colorado Springs. Thanks, Kimberly. Lots of love.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.